Hello and welcome to week 2 of Travel and Tourism Public Relations. Our topic this week is all about understanding marketing, public relations, and advertising. And we're delighted to have two of our new assistant professors in journalism and mass communication with us. Dr. Dani Myers LaGree, who is an assistant professor of public relations, and Dr. Alec Tefertiller, who is an assistant professor of advertising. Welcome, Dani and Alec.
Hi there.
Hi, excited to be here talking to you all today.
Yes. Let's start with you, Dani. What I'd like you to do is give us your definition of public relations. There are so many out there, but I want yours.
Yeah, there are a lot of definitions of PR out there, and I'm not a huge proponent of a concrete definition. So I'm just kind of going to describe what I think it is, my own words, borrowing from a few different definitions. And really, I think at its core, public relations is about helping an organization thrive in a complex environment. And this environment involves lots of different types of publics and audiences, ranging from the community in which the organization has its headquarters or operates from, employees involving internal communications and increasing employee morale, helping to retain them and onboard new employees, even investor relations, so keeping in contact with shareholders and helping them to understand the value an organization is bringing to their investment and how that organization might be moving forward. Also, other audiences, including policymakers, how can we reach out to legislators and legislative and help to get some policy change happening. The media, especially if there's something going on that the media is covering concerning your organization, especially if it's involving conflict or a crisis communication issue, we have to get in front of that message and work with the media to help control that narrative. So yeah, I think that in terms of PR, it's very complex. Not one size fits all in terms of strategy. It depends on a lot of different moving parts and pieces. And I think that that's what makes it so interesting. That's why I love it.
Thank you. Alec, can you give us a definition, your definition of advertising?
Sure. I would say that the simple definition is advertising is basically a paid media communication, mediated communication. That typically, I would say 99% of the time, and really 100%, if I'm being honest, that's persuasive, paid, mediated, persuasive communication. Other caveats to add on to that: advertising is identifiable as advertising. I think that's a key part of the definition, but also key when we talk about the ethics of advertising. So people should know that what they're seeing is advertising, that it's identifiable, that it's clear that that's what it is, that we disclose that. And then also that it typically can come from, it's one organization, an advertiser, and I say organization because, we think of advertising a lot of times in a business sense, but nonprofits or advertise, political groups advertise. There's all kinds of groups that advertise. So organizations are advertisers, and they're paying a media channel for the ability to place those advertisements, whether that's a television station or a radio station or a newspaper or Facebook, Google, you name it. So that's kind of that was the short version and the longer version. But the main thing is that what makes something, I think, distinctly advertising is that it's paid, that we're paying somebody for a placement. And I think that's where the distinction kind of draws between what we do and other types of communication. The key distinction, though I think there are some other ones.
Mm-hmm. So Dani, how do public relations professionals generally regard advertising professionals as a partner?
As a partner, yes. It's really important that within an organization, the PR team and the advertising team work together to align their long-term and short-term goals and also align those with those overarching business objectives. So how PR professionals work with advertisers is everything has to work in tandem. So if we, from a PR perspective, if we have a crisis issue that we are dealing with, and a good example of this is Chipotle. Chipotle came out in the news and made some announcements regarding their E. coli issue, but they also bought, some paid ads, full page ads to try to get the attention from the public. So the messaging across both of those platforms had to be cohesive and consistent, no matter what kind of platform that you were using. So I definitely think that the two rely on each other. And based on the situation and the context, PR might drive the advertising message. And in other situations, the advertising message might drive what the PR strategy is.
Alec, can you address how advertising professionals generally see public relations as a partner?
I don't disagree with it. With really, I think what Dr. LaGree said was spot on, increasingly so. I think there was a point 30 or 40 years ago where, and when you think of the very siloed approach to business and management, that I think in some regards very much still exist, though less so, especially in our field. There was a point where there were kind of clear lines between the two, that there were ad people and there were PR people, and there were kind of cultural differences there. But I think increasingly so, you can't have one without the other. And I think advertisers recognize that too. When advertisers are thinking of an ad strategy, they're also thinking of their earned media and their own media. You can't have one without the other. And so I think there's the relationship there is kind of I don't know a good description of it, but it's a mutual sharing of communication responsibility. I think ad people understand that really what makes they can't not think of publicity and promotion and the earned approaches to media when they're thinking about their strategies, that they go hand in hand. And so I think there's even though ad people aren't specifically handling kind of not necessarily the day-to-day in terms of the way PR people in terms of like managing crises or managing kind of day-to-day events, advertising in a lot of ways is a lot more planned, in the sense that we kind of plan things ahead of time, come up with our strategy and implement it. We're definitely thinking about how what we do is creating earned media, creating word of mouth, creating publicity is a part of that strategy. So it's you can't think about advertising these days without thinking about PR and without thinking about how we can integrate our approaches.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. A term you used, or a word you used, Alec, that I'd like to both of you to address in all of this, because I think it's one of the key premises of both disciplines, and that's the ethics and the credibility of it. Mm-hmm. Can you speak to the ethics and credibility of good practice a little bit, Alec?
Sure. I know in advertising, and of course there's a lot of legal precedent in First Amendment precedent even, but we want a good advertising. It's clear that it's advertising. And there's been some studies recently. I know there's a trend in this idea of native advertising, where it's kind of, you open a magazine and there's something that kind of looks like an article, but it's actually paid advertising. We have to disclose. We legally are required to put that information. This is an advertisement. Even when we're doing, Facebook messaging or sponsorship, those kinds of things where people are paid to post a tweet, which is common. There's the requirement. And again, these are not just ethical; they are legal as well. That we're supposed to disclose that what we're doing is advertising. And I think that's not just us trying to satisfy the law. I think there is that larger ethical component that we're not trying to deceive people. We're not trying to let people think that they're getting some sort of news information, when actually we are trying to persuade. That it's key to make that distinction. And that's, I think, one of the kind of key ethical considerations is making sure, that people know that we're advertising. And then beyond that, just making sure that we're truthful, that we're not making claims that we can't support. And even there are types of claims like puffery claims. I mean, it's fine to say we're the best, toothpaste ever, because that's what they call puffery. That's just, you're not, that nobody would construe that as like a scientific argument. But when we do make a scientific argument, our ingredients, the chemicals we put in our toothpaste have been scientifically proven to be more effective, that, yeah, we can back that up and that we can support those claims. So being truthful in how we present information and what we use, and then also being clear in that we are advertising. I think those are the main kind of, I would say, if I had to identify the two kind of main ethical considerations in our practice, though that would be two of the main ones. Obviously, there's a lot more in how we, ethical and moral and thinking of diversity and there's a lot more issues beyond that. But in terms of just everyday practice, we want to be clear that we're an ad, and we don't want to lie, I'd say, are the main things that we strive for. And I think it's reasonable to expect that we can accomplish those things.
Dani, would you like to comment also as a public relations practitioner?
Yes, absolutely. There's, as we all are aware, there's common misperceptions of public relations professionals and how we operate in the field. A lot of people might refer to us as spin doctors. And for example, if a crisis occurs, that we are there to clean up the mess and cover up our organization's mistakes. However, that goes against the Public Relations Society of America Code of Ethics for the public relations practice. An effective public relations professional will come forward with the truth in a timely manner and is honest, open, and transparent. And although not every single public relations professional practices public relations this way, it's so important to understand those ethical principles, because at the end of the day, you are representing your organization or your client, and your job is at stake if you are not telling the truth and being open and transparent. So there are those ethical principles that professionals in PR are expected to uphold, and telling a lie or trying to cover up information or trying to skew information so that it's saying something else that is not truthful, that is going to come back to haunt you. And effective public relations professionals know that. And public relations professionals, really, whenever you're in the planning stage or you have a seat at the table with the C-suite or upper level executives, you are the voice of the public. You are the ones who are saying, what is in the public's best interest. So if the CEO wants to launch a new initiative, but it might harmfully impact the local community, it's the PR professional who needs to speak up and say it's not going to go well for our community. It's going to have a negative impact on our long-term reputation.
Excellent. Last question. Dani, you were hired to teach public relations, and Alec, you were hired to teach advertising. Why should we think broader than just being in what, Alec, you referred to as the silos? What's the reality of it? Alec, would you like to address that?
Sure. Well, again, and I think so much of this is being driven by the technology and where we are. The new expectation in terms of advertising, especially online, for instance, making an online video advertisement, the goal is that we pay for 10,000 impressions and we get a million impressions. That's a success, meaning that we don't pay for the vast majority, 95% of what we're getting in terms of people seeing our content. So that's all earned media. That's all shared media, I guess, that they call what is it? The new peso. Yeah, peso model. It's the shared component. So we're
sorry to interrupt.
Okay, go ahead. So
stands P is paid, E is earned, S is shared, O is owned. Paid, yes. Earned, shared, and owned. Yeah.
Right. Yes. And so what we're doing in paid is we're trying to drive everything else. We're trying to drive the E, the S, and the O. We're trying to create great ads that get a lot of buzz, that maybe generates some publicity and definitely generates social sharing, and that connects to our own media, to our website, and drives traffic there. So we're thinking in terms of advertising, in terms of promotion. How can we create promotion? So you can't just think about advertising, because the goal is ultimately PR when it comes right down to it. We're trying to drive other forms of publicity with our ads. And again, companies like that, because if I tell you that, hey, we can get 10 million views from 100,000, paid impressions, that means, oh, wow, we're getting really good ROI. We're not having to pay for 10 million views, which if you think about the television model, we have 10 million viewers, and you're going to pay for every single one of those viewers when you buy your Super Bowl ad or whatever it is. But Facebook, now hopefully we buy as few ads as possible, and then the video goes viral. And that's all about promotion. That's all about, and so along with our paid strategy, we're thinking about, okay, how can we generate that unpaid promotion? So hi to Danny's family member that just walked there.
It's going to go viral, just like the video.
Yes, just like this video is going viral. So we're not going to have to pay much for this one. So that's I would say from an advertising perspective that you can't think of one without the other these days, especially.
Dani, would you like to contribute to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like Alec mentioned, you can't operate in a silo anymore. It's not effective. It's not going to work, especially when communications today is so transparent. And that's what consumers and audiences, constituents, that's what they are expecting. That's what they're demanding. And I really love what Alec mentioned, how can we leverage the paid to get to the earned, shared, and own portions of the model. And something that I want to touch on is the concept of the media multiplier effect. Yeah. Okay, so if we are doing a paid ad buy, but we can also get, leverage the virality of that on social media, get it buzzing. And then if we can also pitch this newsworthiness to Good Morning America, and it might appear in their pop news, we're capturing audiences that are watching traditional media, that are watching the morning news, and that are also engaged online on digital platforms. So we're getting much more bang for our buck, or return on investment that way. And that's what the executive level is looking for today. The budgets are continuously getting cut. We're expected to do a lot more with a lot less. And thankfully today, with all of these advancements in technology, we're able to do that by being creative and taking advantage of those opportunities and allowing for advertising to capitalize on PR and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Any last comments you'd like to add for our students? We haven't talked about marketing, but marketing again is really, I feel, and tell me how you think about my definition. Marketing is about the relationship and the exchange between the organization and its consumer.
Yeah.
And it's the product, the price, the promotion, and the place. And absolutely. I think that because marketing relies so much on sales figures, that for its to show how effective it was, it doesn't really talk about some of the other things, the way we understand advertising and public relations as much, because marketing sees both as promotional elements, one paid, one unpaid, but their relationship is really with the consumer. And the example that I like to use in this is, if you want to buy something, purchase a product, a service, whatever, that would be the effects of marketing. When something goes wrong, then you don't call marketing, you call public relations or the communications arm or public relations and advertising are to fix it.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. I'll let you go ahead and finish.
No, that's pretty much where I leave it.
And also, if people aren't aware of a product and don't understand that when they have a need for something, that there's something out there to fill that need and provide that solution, that, that product that's made by marketing. Research and development has decided these are the best materials to use to create this product. Here's the price point. Here's where we're going to distribute it. Advertising and PR have to come into play to help people understand that this is out there. And especially in terms of, I see a lot of startups today that are really engaging in PR efforts and then once the PR takes off and that awareness is established, then they will engage in advertising. Because if you're not aware of what a startup stands for, what their mission is, if you just see a 30-second ad for it, you're not going to get that captured. So that's kind of something that I wanted to make the distinguish between. I think that's a really good example of how startups are really, they're engaging thought leaders. They're pitching to trusted media sources to tell the story of their business. And then down the road, 6 months, a year down the road, they're engaging in some big ad buys once that awareness is established.
Alec, in our last 5 minutes, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, sure. And kind of building on what both of you said, there's this new emphasis in what we call a branded content or branded entertainment, where it sits really in that weird space of PR, advertising, and kind of brand relationship, which isn't, not a purely marketing function. A great example I came across recently was Harry's. Harry's is like a shaving company, one of these companies where men can order shaving cream, and they kind of focus on men's hygiene products. And they've started a campaign. They partnered with a couple of nonprofits that are encouraged about helping kind of men think about masculinity and dealing with that issue. And so they put out what they call it a short film, a little 2-minute little film which features a little boy who's lost his dad, who meets an alien and is trying to determine what it means to be a man. And it's not now in the series. At one point in the film, the kid is trying to teach this alien how to shave, and so obviously there's the product placement in there. But the point of this video, which again it's hard to call it an ad, is more about let's rethink masculinity and what does it mean to be a man. And then of course they promote this, so they advertise this video on Facebook, and it links to their kind of corporate responsibility website, which leads people to get involved with or make contribution to some of these nonprofits. And again, it's a very kind of roundabout way. Every aspect of it is very roundabout in terms of how it's promoting the brand. It's really about corporate responsibility and establishing the brand identity as kind of linked to corporate responsibility and what they're doing. And they're creating something that's not really, it's a short film. It's not really a commercial as we think about it, but they're still promoting it with advertising. So it's kind of this really interesting space where it's not, publicity as we typically think about it, or advertising as we typically think about it, or even entertainment as we typically think about it. It's kind of finding someplace in the middle and kind of combining with corporate responsibility. So it's a long-term goal and sort of kind of crafting brand identity and what brands are involved with, but it's kind of the future because it's tapping into all these things: shared media, different types of approaches, brand identity, maybe not the pure marketing. We have a product we're trying to promote and get it out there on the shelves, get people to buy it. More like, no, we want you to think about our brand, and we want you to think about what we stand for, and we want to do something creative that you'll share with friends because it's a sweet little video. So it's just there's a lot of opportunities to think outside of the box right now, and the technology is fueling that. But I say, kind of to go back to what we've been talking about all along, the distinction between advertising, PR, marketing, and what they do is there's a lot of blurring there. And so how can we figure out ways to kind of leverage all these different communication abilities that we have to best promote our message, whether that's a brand message or a nonprofit message or whatever it is. There's a lot of opportunities. So yeah.
Dani and Alec, thank you so much for sharing with us. I hope that some of the students who see this particular video and are in this class show up in your class soon.
Yes, indeed.
Love to have you.
Yeah. All right. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.